This $3 mix pulls deer from further away than any commercial attractant I've ever tested on camera. 3 ingredients, all legal to buy, all sitting on the shelf at any farm supply store. But the moment you combine them and put them in the woods to hunt over, it becomes illegal in 24 states. Game wardens have confiscated rifles and revoked hunting privileges over it. The reason it's banned isn't because it's dangerous or unethical. It's banned because it works too well. And the third ingredient crosses a legal line that turns a perfectly legal mineral lick into what every state wildlife code defines as bait. Here's what's in it and why the deer can't stay away from it. The first 2 ingredients are dicalcium phosphate and rock salt, both classified as mineral supplements in every state I've checked. You can buy them at any Tractor Supply or farm co-op, pour them on the ground, and hunt over them in most of the country without breaking a single regulation. Deer hit them hard from April through September because a buck growing antlers is running a calcium and phosphorus deficit so severe that his own skeleton loses bone density to feed the rack on his head. Scientists confirm this with radioactive calcium tracers, labeled calcium injected into a deer's skeleton before antler growth showed up in the growing antlers weeks later, proving the minerals were pulled directly from the bones. That's not folklore, that's tracked at the molecular level. The salt drives repeat visits because sodium is the one mineral whitetails can't get enough of from natural vegetation in most of the United States. Almost all soils more than 25 miles from a seacoast are deficient in sodium, which means nearly every inland deer herd in America is chronically sodium deprived. Those 2 ingredients alone, mixed into the soil the way I described in a previous video, will create a mineral site that deer visit daily for months and dig into a hole deep enough to park a wheelbarrow in after 2 seasons. But they're slow to find. A pile of white powder and salt in the dirt doesn't throw a scent plume. A deer has to physically walk within 10 to 15 yards of a straight mineral site before he detects it. If you're running cameras, that means you're only photographing deer that happen to walk past the site by accident. You're not pulling them in, you're hoping they stumble across it. That's the difference between hunting and waiting. The commercial mineral companies know this, which is why every product on the shelf at Cabela's adds a flavoring agent to the mineral base. Trophy Rock adds trace minerals that create a distinctive smell. Lucky Buck adds a proprietary scent. Anilogix adds flavoring. They're all solving the same problem. Mineral alone doesn't advertise itself from distance. The third ingredient solves that problem for about 75 cents. Powdered molasses. Dried granular molasses sold as a livestock feed supplement at Tractor Supply or any feed store, roughly $10 to $15 for a 50-pound bag that lasts multiple seasons. The moment you add molasses to the dicalcium phosphate and salt, 2 things change. First, the scent plume explodes. Molasses has one of the strongest sweet aromas in the natural world. The volatile compounds in molasses, primarily sucrose and glucose breakdown products, travel on thermal currents the same way any fruit-based attractant does, and a deer downwind of a fresh molasses application can detect it from 200 to 400 yards depending on conditions. That's not a guess. I've tested vanilla at 50 to 75 yards, anise oil at 75 to 100 yards, and persimmon at 100 to 150 yards. Molasses beats all of them for initial detection range. That's based on the scent plume data I've compared across every attractant I've tested, and molasses consistently throws the longest range initial detection of anything I've put in the ground. Kelly's recipe on the Bowsite forum, a recipe from a hunter who ran mineral sites for over 25 years before he passed away and whose formula other hunters still use to this day, reported that his deer were still digging at his molasses. Mineral sites later in the year than he'd ever seen with any other mix, which tells me the molasses was extending the attraction window well beyond the normal spring through summer mineral craving period. An Archery Talk poster, who works in the deer nutrition space, said dried molasses is one of only a small number of flavors that are natural attractants to deer, as opposed to flavors that appeal to humans, but deer don't care about. Second, the molasses changes the physical properties of the mix. Dry mineral powder blows away in wind and washes off surfaces in rain. Molasses is sticky. When mixed with dicalcium phosphate and salt and applied to a stump, or stirred into wet soil, the molasses bonds everything together into a tacky matrix that clings to wood grain and soil particles instead of dispersing. Rain doesn't wash it away. It pushes it deeper into the ground, which means the site gets more effective over time, not less. The deer follow the minerals down and dig deeper to reach them. A poster on the Deer Hunter forum described this exactly. His site started as a shallow hole and grew into a crater big enough to hide a four-wheeler in. The molasses mineral mix migrated downward through clay, and the deer just kept excavating. I have a site that started as a shallow bowl and is now over a foot deep after 3 seasons, because the molasses mineral mix leached into the clay and the deer kept excavating to get to it. A commenter on one of my own videos described exactly this recipe, without me ever mentioning it. Dicalcium phosphate, trace minerals, dried granular molasses, on a rotten stump or clay soil pit. He'd been running it for years. A Michigan Sportsman poster said he used to go to the local co-op for trace mineral, mixing salt, dicalcium phosphate, and molasses, confirming the same combination independently. These aren't guys reading each other's posts. These are hunters in different states arriving at the same recipe through trial and error over years. When 5 different sources in 5 different forums converge on the same 3 ingredients, the signal is real. A poster on the Deer Builder forum, who runs a wildlife mineral company, said that when designing his commercial mix, dried molasses was one of the flavor bases he recommended specifically for attracting deer to mineral sites, not just for palatability, but for long-range scent detection. Multiple hunters across Bow Sight, Archery Talk, Geon, and Missouri whitetails have been running variations of this exact 3-ingredient mix for 10 to 25 years, with consistent results. The commercial deer mineral companies are selling you the same 3 functional categories: calcium phosphorus mineral, sodium salt, and a sweet flavoring agent in a smaller bag with a deer on the label for 4 to 6 times the price. A commenter on my channel put it plainly. He gets 7 to 10 mineral licks for the price of 1 commercial lick using dicalcium phosphate with mineral salt. Add molasses and the attraction radius jumps from 10 yards to 200 plus. That's the $3 mix. That layered chemistry, mineral need plus sodium craving plus long-range scent, is the same principle behind every trick in the Buck Hunter's Bible. 77 tricks, each with the biology behind it. 90 pages, attractant chemistry, scent control, stand placement, rut phase tactics, old-timer methods. Reference card in the back for the stand. Links in the description below, or scan the QR code on screen. The recipe I run is 1 50-pound bag of dicalcium phosphate, 1 50-pound bag of trace mineral salt, and 1 50-pound bag of dried granular molasses. Mix in equal parts using a coffee can as your scoop. 1 can dical, 1 can trace mineral salt, 1 can dried molasses. That's enough for 1 site. Store the unmixed ingredients separately in sealed buckets until you're ready to deploy. I mix mine at the truck tailgate with a 5-gallon bucket and a stick. Takes about 90 seconds. The molasses makes the mix smell like a bakery, which means your truck will smell like cookies for a week. My wife noticed. She wasn't impressed. She said the garage smelled like a Cracker Barrel. I told her that's the smell of saving $25 per bag. Total cost for the 3 bags, roughly $45 to $55, which gives you enough material for 6 to 8 sites for a full season. Compare that to $150 to $250 for the same coverage with commercial mineral. The application method matters more than the recipe. Pick a location near a trail intersection or a known travel corridor, well away from your hunting stand if your state requires a distance buffer. Dig a bowl-shaped hole 6 to 8 inches deep and 2 to 3 feet across. Pour in a few gallons of water and mix the dirt to a thick mud. Dump your mineral mix into the wet mud and stir it together so the minerals bind to the soil particles. The deer consume the mineralized soil itself, which is how every natural mineral lick on the planet works. They're not licking a surface. They're eating dirt that contains what their body is demanding. Place a salt block in the center if you want to accelerate the first visit. The salt block is visible from a distance and gives the deer a reason to investigate before they have detected the molasses scent. Once they arrive and hit the molasses mineral soil, the salt block becomes irrelevant because the mix in the ground is delivering everything at once. I've watched this progression on camera, day 1, Deer licks the salt block for 30 seconds and leaves. Day 3, deer ignores the block and goes straight to the hole in the ground, pawing and eating mineralized dirt for 2 minutes. By day 7, the block has barely been touched, but the hole is 6 inches deeper. Refresh the site once in early spring and once in midsummer with a fresh scoop of the mix stirred into the hole. That's it. 2 visits per year to maintain a site that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from March through October. My lowest maintenance site has been active for 4 seasons now, and the hole is so deep my boot disappears when I step in it. 4 seasons, roughly $12 total investment, and the deer have done all the work. For camera surveys, which is the primary reason I run mineral sites, the results speak for themselves. An Archery Talk poster shared his trail camera data. Before putting out a dye-cal mix, he got 16 photos in a week. After deploying the mix at the same camera, he got 118 photos in a week. Same property, same camera, same time frame. The only variable was the mineral. That's a 7 times increase in camera activity from 1 bag of powder. Whether his mix included molasses or not, I can't confirm. But the baseline mineral response alone tells you what dicalcium phosphate does to deer traffic at a camera site. With molasses in the mix, the initial detection happens faster because the scent reaches deer from further away, and the dwell time per visit is longer because the molasses gives them a caloric reward on top of the mineral they're seeking. Longer visits mean more photos per deer, better antler detail in velvet, and more accurate inventory data for planning your fall strategy. A deer that spends 30 seconds at a plain mineral site gives you 2 or 3 usable photos. A deer that spends 3 minutes at a molasses mineral site gives you 15 to 20 photos from multiple angles as it moves around the hole. That camera data is worth more than any theoretical antler growth benefit. The National Deer Association reviewed the research on mineral supplementation and antler size, and concluded that age and nutrition matter far more than supplements. A Penn State study found differences in yearling antler development between supplemented and unsupplemented groups, but by age 2.5, those differences disappeared. An Auburn study found no measurable difference at all. I'm not going to oversell this mix as a rack builder. The attraction benefit is proven. The inventory benefit is proven. The antler growth benefit is possible, but not demonstrated at the individual level by any peer-reviewed research I've seen. I'd rather be honest about that and keep your trust than promise you bigger antlers and lose it. Too many channels and companies sell mineral supplements on the antler growth promise. The science doesn't support it at the individual level. The attraction benefit is where the real value is, and that benefit is massive. You know exactly who's on your property, what they look like in velvet, what direction they approach from, and where they bed based on their approach angle. That data is what determines where I hang stands in October. By August, I know every buck on the property by his rack, I know his approximate age by his body, and I know which trail he uses to approach the site, which tells me where he beds. That bedding data is more valuable than any mineral benefit. Now, the legal reality, and this is the part you need to hear before you drive to Tractor Supply. Dicalcium phosphate and salt by themselves are classified as mineral supplements, not bait, in nearly every state. You can deploy them and hunt over them in most of the country. The moment you add molasses, the legal classification changes. Molasses is the ingredient that makes this mix work at distance. Molasses is also the ingredient that makes it illegal. That's the trade-off, and you have to decide which side of it you want to be on based on where you hunt. Molasses is a food-based ingredient. It contains sugar and carbohydrates. In every state where baiting is defined as placing any food, grain, or consumable substance to attract deer, molasses pushes the mix into the illegal category. The states where this full mix is completely banned for hunting purposes include Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, Nevada, California, Alaska, Oregon, and Vermont. In Michigan, the entire Lower Peninsula bans bait including mineral with food additives, and the Upper Peninsula has seasonal restrictions. Wisconsin bans it in CWD counties, which is an expanding list. Virginia banned mineral licks including food-based additives in over 40 counties. Maryland, Connecticut, and multiple other states have partial or complete restrictions. That's how you get to 24 states with some form of ban that covers this mix. The number keeps growing as CWD expands and states add counties to their restriction zones. Without the molasses, you'd be legal in nearly all of them. With it, you're not. That's the trade-off. The molasses is what makes the mix effective at long range. The molasses is also what makes it bait. If you hunt in a state where baiting is banned, use the dicalcium phosphate and salt without the molasses during hunting season. Run the full 3-ingredient mix only for off-season camera surveys where legal, or as a year-round supplement on private land in states that allow it. Where it's legal to hunt over bait, use the full mix and enjoy the results. Where it's not, respect the law. A game warden doesn't care what your intentions were. He doesn't care that it's only $3. He doesn't care that the commercial version is the same thing in a different bag. He cares what's in the ground when he walks up to your stand. And dried molasses in the soil is unambiguously bait in every state that defines bait as a food-based substance. The CWD connection is real too. Mineral sites concentrate deer at a single point, which increases nose-to-nose contact and saliva deposition in the soil. CWD prions can remain infectious in soil for at least 2 years. Wildlife agencies are banning mineral and bait sites specifically to reduce this concentration effect. Whether the bans actually slow CWD transmission is debated. Texas, the heaviest baiting state in the country, doesn't have the worst CWD outcomes. But the bans are enforced regardless of the science debate, and a confiscated rifle plus revoked hunting privileges is a steep price for a $3 bag of mineral mix. Everything in this video, plus about 60 more techniques, are in the Buck Hunter's Bible: attractant chemistry, mineral biology, scent control, stand placement, all 3 rut phases, reference card in the back, links in the description, QR code on screen. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Here's the bottom line. The commercial deer mineral market exists because 3 cheap ingredients, calcium phosphorus mineral, sodium salt, and a sweet scent agent, work. The companies package those 3 categories into branded products with camo labels and sell them for $19 to $35 per bag. You can buy the raw ingredients for $3 per site and get a higher concentration of the active minerals with a stronger scent plume. The deer at my place respond to both identically. I ran commercial mineral and my homemade mix on a split setup last summer, 2 sites 200 yards apart on the same trail with identical cameras, and the data was indistinguishable. Same visit frequency, same dwell time, same species composition. The only difference was the receipt. One cost me $28, the other cost me $3. The deer didn't care, my wallet did. And somewhere on your property right now, there's a buck whose skeleton is losing density to feed the antlers on his head. And his body is searching for the one spot where the ground gives back what the rack took. That spot can cost you $28, or it can cost you $3. The chemistry is the same, either way. The deer's biology doesn't have a price preference, it has a mineral preference. And for $3, you can be the place where his skeleton finds what his antlers took. That's not an attractant. That's an answer to a biological question his body has been asking since March. The commercial companies charge $28 to answer it. You can answer it for $3. The deer doesn't know the difference. He just knows the ground tastes right. And at $3 a site, you can afford to find out.